Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about the latest efforts to quote ban TikTok. Now, if you have been following my channel for a while, you'll know I've done a couple different videos on the Restrict Act, and this had a lot of pushback just last year, 2023. So the Restrict Act came out and it sought to make it a criminal offense to use a banned application that was somehow connected to a foreign adversary. Now, that sounds all well and good. Sounds like it has good intentions according to them, but you really have to look at how these kinds of things can be twisted, because there is one thing we know, is that when a lawyer puts their words into work, when they write those bills, they leave as much room as possible to benefit themselves later by twisting the interpretation. And we saw that with the Patriot Act. We've seen that with many, many bills out there. And if you aren't aware, relating to the Patriot Act, Joe Biden actually takes credit for writing the Patriot Act.
Right after 1994, and you can ask the Attorney General this because I got a call when he introduced the Patriot Act. He said, Joe, I'm introducing the act basically as you wrote it in 1994. It was defeated then not by any liberals. It was defeated then by the folks who worried that we'd have the Minutemen. But just to set the record straight, almost the same thing that got passed, the Patriot Act, was introduced by me in 1994, and it was the right wing that defeated it. You guys tried to help get it passed, including the wiretap changes and the rest.
I don't like to get political on this channel, and I'm not somebody who's aligned with any political party. In fact, I find that the very best way that we could actually make positive change is to align with everyone of every political party and persuasion, even those we may disagree with intensely on different issues. We should be able to come together on the issues that we can agree on. Things like this totalitarian technology, the mass surveillance, the complete disregard for human dignity that is mass surveillance. It is a complete control mechanism. These are tools of totalitarianism. They are not tools to make a better society or a more liberty-caring society. They are evil. And that's really what it comes down to. Mass surveillance is actually an evil empire. And we're going to go into some of the latest efforts to ban TikTok today. Now, before we saw how it was all for preventing a foreign adversary from gaining our data, which is very ironic considering the very people that help to promote these bills are the same who benefit from mass surveillance. So to me, it looks more like this is data we don't have access to. This is data we can't collect. And this is data that weakens our influence because we don't have it in our hands. So my interpretation of banning TikTok is multifold. It's not just about cutting off the influence of a foreign adversary to the U.S. populace. It's also about the ability to collect data that can't be collected right now. When it comes down to it, when you look at what mass surveillance leads to, when you have all the data you can collect, when there's nothing left to collect, the next step is usually to use that data for changing minds and influencing people. So that's how the data is used, and really that's where the power lays, in the ability to manipulate populations, to see them state things like how they're afraid that the CCP is going to use it to sow discontent. Well, I see no one sowing more discontent than the mainstream media in the U.S. They pit each political party against one another on a constant basis. It is a constant basis. Now, we also have this is what the TikTok bill's latest rendition is, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. And I look at this, and I also look at how a lawyer could manipulate the wording of these acts. So you have to really look into that. The vague wording is always alarming, because if they can punish or imprison an American or whoever else may be under this type of legislation, whoever's under the boot of it is going to be at risk and could lead to possibly even foreign connected developers. With open source, you look at all of the great things that are made by collaboration across the world, with developers all over the world, and they may live in a country that may be connected to possibly TikTok, but that doesn't mean that they are bad people. That doesn't mean they have misaligned influence. I also did some more digging on this, and apparently the ADL has a lot to say. So for those who aren't aware, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League,
Well, when I was Treasury Secretary, I chaired CFIUS. CFIUS approved, and I had President Trump sign an order that TikTok had to be sold. I'm going to put together a group to buy TikTok.
No matter where you stand politically, and like I said, I'm not aligned with any political party. I will never be a registered Republican. I think both parties, Democrat and Republican, are currently in a state of corruption where there's really no redeemable qualities right now unless something is done about money in politics. That's the real problem, and that's where we should all be aligning on worldwide, is the fact that we are having people buying our politicians. So your vote doesn't truly matter if they can buy your politicians. And so this is coming down. If you really dig into it, I looked at some articles. I was reading this one from Mike Tracy. Now, I'm not really familiar with Michael Tracy, but I did read this article. I thought they did a good job on this. So apparently there is a joint letter from Kathy McMorris Rogers, who is a representative at the chair of the House and Energy Commerce Committee, said that the platform was, quote, guilty of stoking anti-Semitism support and sympathy for Hamas. And we see this over and over and over in regards to this TikTok ban. And apparently it wasn't something that was wanted to be made completely public because they had a secret hearing on this. So that's what is stated in various reports, that the, quote, intelligence community, don't you just love that term, the intelligence community, as if it is some great community of community organizers working to keep you safe. I'm always thankful to know the intelligence community is there to protect us from ourselves. I know you share my feeling on this, that we need to be tightly controlled from what we say, and going into the ability to think freely. You will lose the ability. This is something that's important to me, at least, that if you lose the ability to speak freely, you will lose the ability to think freely, because in the long run, if certain things are not even allowed to be discussed, well, then they leave the consciousness of our collective minds. So we have to be able to talk about everything. I am somebody who believes that we need free speech, unabridged, And I am an absolute free speech person. I believe that we can always, help educate people, and that is the best way to go about, speech we don't agree with. Is that we can get along with them, we can try and reach some kind of alliance on some kind of issue, and maybe they will think differently. But banning speech is the worst possible thing. If you're worried about anti-Semitism, there's nothing worse to fuel the flames of anti-Semitism than to have lobbies like AIPAC, the American Israeli Foreign Affairs Committee. If you have something like that, a powerful lobby organization that is actually shutting down your First Amendment, even if I don't agree with what you have to say, anyone who is trying to do that and is using the power of campaign donations, it is really ugly out there. I really encourage you, if you want to learn more about AIPAC, it's one of the major lobby organizations. Now, they don't just flex their muscles with campaign donations. And mind you, I do not even use TikTok. I've never downloaded it. I've never used it. This isn't even something I would be paying attention to if it were not for this attempt to ban it. And anytime I see the attempts to restrict the internet, to restrict the possibilities of the internet, where there are efforts to actually shut down entire conversations, your right to even have a conversation, to me, that is the biggest danger that's out there, is lobby groups like this. And like I said, I don't like to get political, but this is one of the big problems with politics in the U.S. is lobby groups like this. And it's not just AIPAC. There's other super PACs out there that have a lot of influence and are able to sway politicians. But this one in particular is highly influential. And if you look at the people who are supporting the TikTok ban itself, and really the ability to ban any foreign connected application. And like I said, this could affect developers involved in those countries. So you may not be able to use an application just because a developer lives in China or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a lawyer. But when you see the vague wording of these bills, and it doesn't name TikTok in the bills, but it does name, it does name it, but it doesn't say just TikTok. When you really read it, they want to be able to control all foreign applications, all foreign connected, which could be developers. So to me, that's a real issue. If you're going to seek to suppress my ability to even express myself, even if I don't care to express myself, I have major problems with that. And I'm, of course, going to report on it and expose it for what it is. And it's a shame that this level of power is unchecked, because it is a major threat to your rights. And we're seeing a lot of this. And Israeli president in 2023 even blamed TikTok for, quote, brainwashing Americans. The problem is, it looks to me, it is more that TikTok is becoming a problem for the Israeli establishment. And that's just what I'll call it. It's not all Israelis. It's not all Israelis involved in this. This is a small subsect of billionaires, people like the Sheldon Adelsons of the world, who, by the way, was caught up in a major money laundering operation with China, or at least with a Chinese national. They found $205 million inside this Mexican Chinese man's home, and apparently was using Sheldon Adelson's casino to launder that, who happened to be one of the biggest Republican donors out there. They're talking about taking down politicians. And that was in the British version of this report. And it's an undercover documentary. So we have journalists going undercover. So the lobbyists believe that this is one of their own coming into the fold.
Working on foreign soil, very cautious. We can money trail. This is something that only a country with its resources can do the best.
I think that says it best, and I will let you watch this video, and I'll leave a link to it. But I do think it's important to check that out because it looks like this is not just about the election, as they say. It's all about election interference, misinformation causing, swaying the election. That kind of thing has been, if you notice, that has been the beat of the drum the last few years. How the censorship is coming to be is protecting elections, protecting democratic institutions. All of these things are being done under the guise of those things, all the banning and the restricting of the internet, all being done, they say, to protect the election. But when you really dig deep, you look and you follow the money, you can find that it is in fact those taking those donations. And apparently a lot of the ones banning TikTok are also involved with the pro-Israel lobby funding and take the most funding of all. So you can also contrast that with some of the ones that are taking less money voting against this ban bill, this broad stroke ban bill. And it is a bit too much when we have groups like the ADL policing speech. But that's what I got today, guys. Just wanted to talk about what's really behind the TikTok ban bill, which has been reformulated under a secret hearing to prevent the public from learning about the reasons why, and in the end has been heavily influenced by groups like the ADL, by groups like AIPAC who fund our politicians. And if you actually dare not vote for a bill, if you're under AIPAC funding, they actually will run a candidate against you and spend a ton of money to get you out of the race. So there's so many different ways things are used. There's so many different things, and you'll learn a lot if you watch the lobby documentary, part 1 and 2. Check it out. That's what I got today, guys. Make sure to check out the blog over at bmc.link/politictech. Also check it out on I2P now. I have it also on I2P at http://right-to-privacy.i2p, and you can check out videos and post there anonymously. So if you don't like the ClearNet, if you feel like you want to read or watch more privately, take a look at the I2P based blog. I'll be continuing to post there, and I may do some redesigning of the blog layout. That's what I got today, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll be back later with more on how to protect your security and privacy.
How it's supposed to feel.